The 151st Interparliamentary Union is currently underway in Geneva. All IPU statutory bodies, including the Governing Council, standing committees, committees on the human rights of parliamentarians and on Middle East questions, as well as the Forum of Women Parliamentarians and the Forum of Young MPs are meeting on this occasion. Pia Maan is joining us live on the broadcast. Pia, this global gathering has begun there in Geneva. Take us through the highlights of what has been seen so far there and what has stood out in the deliberations, the meetings and the dialogue.
Absolutely, Uday. It's been a high-octane couple of days here in Geneva as we're reporting from the 151st Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union. Discussions are focusing particularly on human rights and humanitarian assistance. The core theme of the general debate is as such because we're seeing over 120 conflicts bursts across the world, and cumulatively 310 million people are suffering. So parliamentarians from more than 183 countries and 15 associate member states have been gathering here for the last couple of days since the 19th of October, to be specific, to deliberate upon this crucial issue in order to find solutions that can be applicable beyond borders. And what we're really witnessing here is parliamentarians from all these countries exchange best practices with each other, what they can imbibe from other countries, and what example do they set to the world as well. That is not all, Uday. We're also seeing a discussion on artificial intelligence, considering our lives have really been permeated by technology itself. We're seeing AI being used by children, by the elderly alike, whether it is for deep research into matters that are somewhat obscure, or even preparing simple grocery lists as well. Another key item on the agenda has been food security. We're seeing global supply chains being impacted by certain protectionist stance that particular countries are adopting. High tariffs are being imposed as well, which has caused some sort of bottlenecks in these supply chains, including those of food as well. Apart from this, illegal child adoption has been another concern that has been deliberated upon by the parliamentarians here as well. Child trafficking is an issue that exists beyond borders. So it's really been a resonating theme over here with people, technology, how it's being used, cybercrime as well, phishing scams that take place. ASEAN nations in particular are very, very concerned about this over here. Green development and sustainable development is something that has also cropped up, because when we are speaking about problems, it's not just problems of today, it's also problems of tomorrow, of the future, that are being addressed by the parliamentarians over here. So they're all putting their thinking caps on and engaging in dialogue in order to solve these very, very crucial issues.
Absolutely. Now, of course, as the IPU summit deliberations continue, what is to be expected in the next 24 to 36 hours? Also, what is the theme this year, Pia, for the dialogue?
Absolutely. I'd like to address your second question first. It's been a very positive atmosphere over here. In fact, I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of parliamentarians here as well, and they've all pointed out the fact that these resolutions that they've been passing over the last couple of days, the emergency resolutions, have struck a very positive tone and tenor. Of course, there are concerns about whether these resolutions will really be implemented, whether a concretized plan of action would come into place, whether action would be catalyzed or would it just remain as is. But apart from all of this, the atmosphere on the ground is not just highly charged, but it's also very optimistic. And speaking of what we can expect, now over the IPU has been going on since the 19th, and tomorrow is the very penultimate day of this 151st Assembly. So we're looking at all of these discussions, all of these different themes now finally coming together and resulting in a final resolution that will take place in the main session, in the main hall that's going to be held tomorrow itself. We've seen people talk about migration, for instance. Bhutan is one country that raised the issue of brain drain. That's something that concerns India as well. We've also seen artificial intelligence and concerns regarding artificial intelligence being raised in a very novel manner. For instance, people who are concerned about nuclear proliferation have raised the matter, what if AI gets access to these codes one fine day? Would that spell doomsday for us or as humanity or not? So we've seen a lot of innovative conversations taking place around themes that many people don't really think about in their day-to-day lives. These are problems that are concerning humanity, not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. So all of these are loose ends. We can expect them to be tied tomorrow. We've seen a lot of discussions take place upon multilateralism, strengthening multilateral institutions as well, promoting democracy in countries across the world. A large concern is gender equality, women's representation. If we look at the IPU, there are 183 member parliaments. Over 44,000 parliamentarians are members under the Interparliamentary Union, out of which about 26% are women and 27% are youth. So the representation of women and youth in particular is also something the IPU is looking at addressing.
All right. Well, let's quickly turn our focus to more news. Pia, appreciate you joining us with that ground report. Israel has returned the bodies of 30 Palestinians, bringing the total number handed over under the ongoing ceasefire agreement to 195. Israel's military confirmed that the remains of 2 more hostages returned from Gaza have been identified as Aryeh, Zalmanovich and Master Sergeant Tamir Adar. In total, 15 of the 28 Israeli hostages promised under the agreement have now been returned. Gaza's health ministry has reported that 57 of the Palestinian bodies have been identified by relatives, while 54 unidentified bodies were buried. The funeral procession began at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis and continued to a cemetery in Deir al-Bala. Let's listen in to what some Palestinians said.
نقوم اليوم بدفن 54 جثمانا جثمين ابناء شعبنا الفلسطيني الذين سلمهم الاحتلال الاسرائيلي. هؤلاء هم شهداء الدفعه الاولى والدفعه الثانيه. وجدنا جزء كبير من الجثامين معصوب الايدي، معصوب القدمين، معصوب العينين، تم اعدامهم مسافه قريبه، وبالتالي فقدنا عدد كبير من الشهداء الكرام. سيتم دفن 54 جثمان من الدفعه الاولى والثانيه. 165 جثمان وصلوا الى مستشفى ناصر بحالة حقيقة صعبة جدا، واليوم هناك بروتوكول معين موجود من أجل مواراتهم الثرى بطريقة إنسانية، لكن هناك أغلب الجثامين الموجودة لم يتم التعرف عليها ولا على يعني ذويها.
نيجي هنا على الله وعسى نتعرف من هواي، من البنطلون ومن الترنجو، من اللي هو طلع فيه من 7 أكتوبر، لكن للأسف فيش ملامح يا الله ليه؟
Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations, is joining us live from Minneapolis. Andrew, thank you for being with us on NewsX World. Let's just, talk about this entire transition, this process. What do you make of how it's going so far, the pace? Are you hopeful or are you disappointed?
I remain guardedly optimistic / hopeful. By and large, the ceasefire is held. There have been some violations on both sides, but people are shooting at each other less. And the hostage for prisoners and body exchanges, there'll be bumps in the road, but they seem to be going more or less according to plan, if not quite as quickly as people on both sides would hope. Phase 1 of this peace process was always going to be relatively straightforward and easy. I say relatively because it's not uncomplicated, but the Israelis and Palestinians have been here before in terms of hostages for prisoners. Phase 2 will be much more difficult. Disarmament and marginalizing or disbanding entirely Hamas as a political actor and agent in the Strip, that's going to be very, very difficult. And then future stages, which are still quite aspirational, are going to be even more difficult. But so far, there are grounds for guarded optimism. The process appears to be unfolding, even though there have been some setbacks.
Right. Now, of course, with the currently the bodies handover taking place, what is the next stage? What happens next?
Well, providing that all the bodies are returned according to the agreement, first of all, there's going to be some issues raised about the state of these bodies, to what extent the corpses suggest abuse in captivity on both sides, and there's going to be a propaganda battle around that for sure. If we can build momentum then perhaps disarmament. I'm old enough to remember the Northern Ireland peace process when the issue of disarmament came up there as well in connection with the Irish Republican Army. And modalities were worked out. And the IRA over time disarmed in a verifiable way that the other side was able to live with. And so if we can learn some lessons from that historical experience, perhaps disarmament is possible in the Gaza Strip as well. Israeli withdrawal for the disarmament of Hamas. The real problems are related, adjacent to that, but not exactly the same. Will Hamas disband itself? And is that meaningful, or will it simply rebrand as something else? That's going to matter a very great deal, and the way in which the Israelis perceive Hamas's moves in that connection are going to determine whether the process continues to unfold or whether it stalls out at a ceasefire. A ceasefire, by the way, there was a temporary ceasefire in Korea 80 years ago, which still holds. So a ceasefire might be the best solution, both in Ukraine, but since we're talking about Gaza right now, in Gaza as well. That's where we are. There are so many contingencies, so many possibilities. I don't always quote Karl von Clausewitz in these connections, but I will here. Contingency, luck, fate. These play an important role in this process. It's not just reason, and it's not just passion. It's also luck.
Yes. Okay. More news, in fact, that we're tracking this hour in Oslo. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has thanked European countries for their support and called on European leaders to continue aiding Ukraine. Zelensky made these comments in a briefing with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. He stressed the need for ongoing military assistance, particularly to defend against Russian attacks. Meanwhile, the Norwegian Prime Minister announced a new package of support, including $150 million to help Ukraine purchase gas for the winter. He also highlighted Norway's commitment to strengthen air defense capabilities and support Ukrainian industry to meet the country's defense needs. The efforts are expected to gain parliamentary approval as well. Andrew Latham is live with us on this story, Professor of International Relations. Andrew, what do you make of this statement that Vladimir Zelensky has given in Norway?
Well, he's reported the signals that are being sent by some European powers, most European powers. We're in this for the short run. Obviously, Russian strategy has been to freeze Ukraine out of this war by destroying their energy infrastructure. And the Norwegian offer of 135 plus million US dollars to subsidize heating is a short to medium term commitment. But the negotiations over buying Swedish Gripen fighters, which won't hit any Ukrainian airfields for months, probably years, that's a longer-term commitment to maintaining a balance of power. Wherever this conflict freezes, and it's not frozen yet, I think the Russians are still on the move, and this canceled summit, I think, is indicative that Vladimir Putin is not quite satisfied with his territorial gains yet, thinks he's making progress on the ground, on the battlefield, and is going to delay as long as possible until he gets as much as possible. So we're not there yet, but the signals coming out of the Nordic countries in particular are, we're in this for the short haul, and we're in this for the long haul. We're backing Ukraine.
Appreciate you joining us, Professor Latham, with your perspective. Now, flames have erupted from a kindergarten in Kharkiv following a Russian drone strike that killed one person and injured 7, according to Ukrainian officials. Emergency crews rushed to evacuate children as the fire spread throughout the building. Nearby churches opened their doors to offer shelter to families. Witnesses reported scenes of chaos but expressed relief that many children managed to escape unharmed. Let's listen in to one of the survivors.
Я сидів в машині, коли прилетів шахет, і я не знаю, як залишився живий. Господь мене зберіг, тому що машина вся в решето, я цілий, там деякі порізи. Коли пролунав перший вибух, я вибіжав з машини і почав викликати швидку, тому що прилетіло в дитячий садок, там багато дітей було. Потім другий вибух, третій вибух, я вже упав там за кутом.
In other news, former Belarusian political prisoner Sergei Tikhanovsky, who spent nearly 5 years behind bars for his role in challenging President Alexander Lukashenko's rule, has made a passionate appeal at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Tikhanovsky's urged that the European Union take a strong leading role in supporting Belarus's journey towards democracy and freedom. He described Lukashenko as a cunning survivor, acknowledging his ability to maintain power through repression and control, but emphasized that such rule cannot last forever. Tikhanovsky also called on Europe to stand with the Belarusian people, offering political, economic and moral support to ensure peaceful democratic transition when the opportunity arises. He concluded by saying that Belarus needs Europe not only as an ally but a partner in building a free and just future.
It has been 4 months since my release, and I'm quickly catching up with the world. But it is painful to see that things have gotten worse. The business of changing regime in Belarus that I started with another leaders 5 years ago remains unfinished. It is Europe, not the United States, that should take a leading role on its eastern borders. It is Europe that should become the main partner in helping Belarus move toward democracy. You are big. You are strong.
U.S. Trade Representative Greer discussed the ongoing trade dynamics with China, including issues surrounding agriculture, rare earths and beef imports. Greer stated that President Trump will raise agricultural concerns in upcoming talks, but emphasized the U.S. doesn't want countries to use American products for a competitive edge. He also mentioned that there's a potential balanced landing zone in the trade negotiations, criticizing China's recent rare earth move as totally disproportionate. Greer revealed that he and Besant will meet with Chinese officials in Malaysia to see if there's room to progress. He also confirmed that the meeting between Trump and Xi is still on schedule. Ross Feingold, political analyst, is joining us live from Taipei, Taiwan. Ross, thanks for being with us on NewsX World. What is the latest that you're tracking in U.S.-China relations? How are things as of now? And, is this Xi-Trump meeting still on track?
That's certainly the key question. Is the meeting still on track? I would encourage the audience to assume it's happening, but to keep a cautious outlook up until the moment that they actually shake hands, and not only just shake hands within the setting of the large meeting, but they actually go behind closed doors and have a one-on-one meeting for an hour or 2 hours. That's really the key thing. So at the moment, it looks like they're both going to show up at APEC, but the question still remains, are they going to have a long one-on-one meeting? It seems like they're preparing for one. Now, as far as where things stand with that, the key issues for the United States side are pretty obvious. The United States wants China to resume large purchases of agricultural products, not just soybeans, but that's the one getting a lot of media attention. The United States also wants China to remove these recent restrictions on rare earth exports. So that's going to be a key issue for the United States side in these talks. China, they want the United States to stop putting restrictions on the exports of certain chips, semiconductor chips, as well as the export of chip manufacturing equipment, because without access to those advanced manufacturing equipment, then China has to make that equipment on its own, and that's going to take years and a lot of money. So the key issues for both sides are pretty well known in the trade space. And of course, there are those other issues that always exist in U.S.-China relations. I'm speaking from Taiwan, and for sure, if there's a one-on-one meeting, Xi Jinping will bring up Taiwan as well.
Right, and of course, as far as these talks that the Trade Representative Greer has held, what kind of progress do you believe has happened in those meetings?
The good thing is that they're talking. So from the perspective of can the two sides reach a deal, that they have to be talking in order to reach a deal. And one thing we've known from the course of this year after the Trump administration took office, President Trump imposed high tariffs, not just on China, but on most U.S. trading partners. Most times when U.S. and China negotiators have met, and they've met several times in different cities around the world, there seems to be a truce that comes out of those bilateral talks. And both sides say positive things about those talks, and then they typically agree to meet again. So if one is rooting for an agreement to be made, the fact that they're talking at that working level does indicate that there could be an agreement to be reached.
All right, Ross, thank you for joining us with your perspective on that story. Moving on now, the European Parliament has awarded the EU's prestigious Sakharov Human Rights Prize to jailed Georgian journalist and editor Mazia Agobeleli and Polish-Belarusian journalist Andrzej Poczubut, describing them as symbols of the struggle for freedom. Ameglobeli has become a powerful symbol of press courage and resistance against what the European Union describes as Georgia's slide towards authoritarianism in a country that was once considered a leading candidate for EU membership. Poksubut, meanwhile, was jailed in Belarus for his critical reporting, having refused to flee despite a severe government crackdown that has silenced many dissenting voices and forced opponents into exile. The European Parliament President Roberta Metsola stated that both journalists are unjustly imprisoned on fabricated charges simply for doing their job and for speaking out against injustice.
Following the decision that was taken at today's Conference of Presidents, it is my privilege to announce that the 2025 Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought has been awarded to Andrei Pochobut from Belarus and Zia Amlagobeli from Georgia.
A tragic bus crash in Uganda has claimed the lives of 46 people after a head-on collision between two buses on the Kampala-Gulu highway in Kiriandongo district just after midnight on Wednesday. The initial death toll was reported at 63 but later revised to 46 after some victims were found to be unconscious, not dead. Investigations indicate that the crash occurred as the two buses coming from opposite directions attempted to overtake a lorry and an SUV. President Yoweri Museveni sent his condolences to the victims while campaigning for January's general election near the site of